Welcome back, tributes to episode 82 of Into the Arena. I'm Holly,
I'm Emily.
and we have our wonderful Tribute Talk co-host and
Mhm.
awesome friend, Gabby, here tonight.
Yay!
Hello.
Woohoo! Gabby is not only one of our co-hosts on Tribute Talk, but she also has her own Instagram account, which we're so excited about. New Hunger Games Instagram account that you all should
Mhm.
check out.
Mhm.
We'll link it down below, but it's at Sunrise on the Reaping Fan. You were last on an episode with us.
When the magenta copy came out.
hmm
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I knew it was a ballad episode, but today we're here to talk about something completely different, Sunrise on the Reaping, which we're going to dive into in just a minute. But before we get into our episode, just some announcements. This summer, Scholastic is doing their book club. So we are going to be reading along with them. By now, as this episode comes out, we've just wrapped up Mockingjay, and then we'll be doing Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And then on the 23rd, we'll talk about the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And then another announcement is that Tribute Talk is now available wherever you get your podcast. And we're kind of like in a lull right now with news. We're just
We are.
waiting for Sunrise News. So that could come at any point. So on that note, turn on your notifications so that you know when we're going to be doing our emergency tribute talks and
Could be any
posts and
moment,
everything.
any
Yeah,
hmm
day. I feel
just be
like
on
we'll
the lookout.
probably get some news at the end of this book club read along, but
Hmm.
we'll see.
Yeah, I'm hopeful. So our last episode was talking briefly about what we knew about Sunrise on the Reaping, but this episode we brought Gabby in because Gabby is our political science, like theory, philosophy friend. So we needed
Always
somebody
good
to,
to have.
yes, we need to really get into political theory because we know that Suzanne Collins is writing this based off of David Hume's writing. So, what do we think Sunrise on the Reaping is going to be about? Who's going to be our main protagonist?
Well, I've seen a lot of people assume it's going to be Haymitch since it's going to be Haymitch's games.
From that sense, it would be exciting because we would see more of District 12. And I think kind of exploring that topic, I would be excited to see like the difference between the seam and the merchant class. So I feel like if we got a Haymitch perspective, we would spend a lot of time kind of mixed between the capital and District 12.
Yeah, and I can see the trouble with a Haymitch perspective though, with it being just too similar to Katniss.
Hmm.
And we already have those stories written out, and I think Suzanne did such a good job building the world of Panem through Corio's perspective in the capital. I would be surprised if she limited herself in that way of just staying in District 12. Although I think it would be really cool to see like a career district point of view, but
Hmm.
and just to kind of add into the world building. But I mean, it would make sense for it to be his perspective since it is his games, but I personally think like Plutarch's is better, but we'll wait
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
that one.
And
Yeah.
similar to Lucy Gray as well. I mean, it wasn't exactly
Yeah.
her perspective, but I just
hmm
keep thinking about the opening being the reaping again. Are we going to get a third reaping, from the tributes kind of point of view? Are we really not going to see that at all, except maybe from like the game maker's perspective?
I'm not opposed to going back to District 12 because I feel like there is so much to explore, especially after rereading Catching Fire, because there's a lot to do with like conversations between Haymitch and like the comment that Miss Everdeen makes about like things starting up again. I think that it would be interesting to look back
Ooh.
on what District 12 was like during their early years because it was
Mm.
clearly like as harsh as we see in Catching Fire.
I feel like it's the prospect of interacting with characters that we already know about
Hmm.
that's really exciting, and that's why you want it to be in Haymitch's perspective because the odds of that are so high.
And I think it's also hard to think that it's going to be from Haymitch's perspective, though, because Suzanne made a point when the book was announced that it's going to follow propaganda and the effects like that propaganda has on the masses. And
hmm
so I think we don't really see, I mean, I can't envision a world where Haymitch would be swayed one way towards the capital and then
The District 12
propaganda.
propaganda. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you think of propaganda, it's either going to be, okay, who are the people who are making the propaganda, or those who they're putting that propaganda out toward, which is like the capital citizens or districts that are career districts.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can see it being either, the creators of the propaganda or the people who are the most heavily influenced by the propaganda, which would be the ones who would benefit the most from the capital being in power, which is the capital citizens. And then secondly would be next, it would be the career districts because they
Mhm.
get so, okay, this is jumping a little bit, but they get so brainwashed by potentially this book. We get to see the propaganda pieces that they do use to brainwash those career districts. So I'm interested to see what kinds of different propaganda that they have. Just because she did hint towards like David Hume's philosophy, he kind of expands on what is real and what is not real to its furthest extent, instead of us just traditionally thinking like, oh, misinformation. Like he stretches out that definition a little bit more. So I have a feeling then we would see it being heavily influenced on the career districts.
On that note, the perspective being from a career tribute, people have mentioned it being potentially from the District 1 girl tribute because she was the run-up to Haymitch, and maybe there would be like this end-all moment where she realized the propaganda that had been swaying her whole life, that the capital she was fighting for, the capital, was a lie. And so I think that would be interesting, but it would also leave us at a point where a character dies. And
Yeah,
at what point
wouldn't
would
that be
we
fascinating though? If the book just ends when they
crazy?
die, like their last thoughts, and then they're gone.
Yeah. I
That'd be
mean,
kind of
that would,
cool.
Wow.
I feel like that would read more like a novella to me. You know what I
Mm.
mean? Like if we were to follow a career tribute, maybe that would be something Suzanne would like explore down the line. But I couldn't see like a whole book being made
That's why
and then just
dual
stopping.
POV, Plutarch
No,
and the
Oh.
tribute.
don't bring in a dual point of view.
I'm kind of here for it. I want them both.
Really? Really? Okay. Do you think that you could see the career tribute and the Plutarch story playing together? Like,
No, I think it's such a low possibility, but I just think it would be so fun. Like, because my ideal is that it's Plutarch, but
Mhm.
if not Plutarch, I just think it'd be so fascinating to get another district's point of view.
Mm.
yeah.
So give me the dual POV. It's not gonna happen, but I'm here for
Hmm.
it. It's a career tribute, and then they die in the games, and then there's an epilogue from someone else's point of view.
That's giving spoilers. Divergent series. I just can't. Like, I could not take it seriously. I like, how would it wrap into propaganda? I get that we'd be seeing that
It's Plutarch's
perspective.
point of view at the end.
Maybe
He
Plutarch was in
talks
the
about
games at one point.
propaganda.
His letter.
We have
But yeah.
an epilogue scene where he approaches Haymitch.
Ah!
They have a little combo, kind of like the end of Ballad, you know?
I could see that a little bit.
Just a tiny
Just a
bit.
little.
Just a tiny bit. Another one that we can talk about, I think that is a little bit absurd, but also,
Mhm.
you know, I
Let's
could see
go.
it. Could be the coin point of view.
Okay,
District 13. I'm kind of here for that
this would be
too.
so interesting to see Coin's point of view. I have no idea how it could tie in to Haymitch's games other than District 13 being the driving force for creating a rebellion underground within Panem. And so they
Hmm.
somehow are able to connect with Haymitch before he goes into the arena, like that in between time before, like when they're, reaped and then in the arena. So I'm not sure. Like I could see it being that, and then we see like District 13 be like just waiting for a revolution to happen because they remember the dark days. They remember what happened. And so
Mhm.
they are basically surviving off of just rage and like hope that they can one day have revenge or overthrow the oppressor in a very different way.
They have that pandemic
When
I was
when
wondering
did
when they
epidemic.
had the pandemic.
oh yeah. Epidemic, yeah.
I feel like it's when it would have been later than the 50th games. But who's to say they couldn't have
It
had
says
multiple?
several years earlier killed many people in District 13 and
Because
left
Coin's
most of the
family
survivors
was
unaffected.
killed,
Impacted by it,
right?
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it would have been
Because
closer to Katniss's
yeah.
Mhm.
time. It's so hard with the book versus the movie
Mhm.
because the ages are completely
They say
changed.
about 50 years old.
What if we incorporate some of District 13 by Plutarch finding out that District 13, that they're underground?
Yeah.
He
Mhm.
could discover the same like footage, that Katniss notices or something else.
I would be surprised if Suzanne doesn't hint a little bit about either the like more information on the history of District 13 or the current state of it during Haymitch's time. Like
Hmm.
during his games, like I would be very surprised if she didn't mention it at all because so far it's been there's the plot has had a connection to District 13 through Katniss and then through Lucy Gray. It like driving her and the other rebels to flee to District 13. So I would be surprised if it wasn't like a big part of the plot. Like I can
Yeah.
see it influencing Plutarch.
I haven't
Hmm.
really thought about the coin point of view, so I'm just like so fascinated by both of your ideas because I haven't really thought much about it. I could definitely see it being something she could use, and Coin becomes so heavily involved in propaganda in Mockingjay that I
Mm-hmm.
definitely could see her being a character where she explores that. And it'd be cool to watch the games from a perspective of a district that isn't involved.
Wait, so she'd be 25.
I
So
know,
she
which
could
is
be like rising to power
Yeah.
a little bit. She could be like
Mm-hmm.
involved in the politics of everything in District 13.
If they go through the epidemic as she's like in her mid 20s, that is such an easy way for her to
Yeah,
gain power.
but we only know that there was an epidemic and her husband and like
Mm-hmm.
child died, right? So 25 years old, she could be at that point.
And
Yeah.
imagine, like, we know that Suzanne, well, I think we know this, that Suzanne wrote this book during COVID. So,
I feel like that's the assumption. Yeah.
Yeah.
like, that would make total sense. That would wrap it all together. That would just be a perfect reflection. I could buy a coin point of view. I honestly could.
hmm
Dual POV, Plutarch and Coin.
Oh no, now you're
Listen.
convincing me.
But I
That could
honestly
work
like,
really well, actually.
would audiences buy it though? Like, I think there's so much hype around this book now that they've said that like the promo starts on the day of the 50th reaping. Like,
I
our
think it doesn't
audience,
matter. Who cares?
I
There
know,
can be
like
all this
I'm
hype
gonna
and
read
then
it no matter
they
what.
can buy the book and help sales. And if they don't like it, they don't like it.
I
Whatever.
know, yeah. I mean, like totally, agree with you, but I'm just like, there's so much hype behind this being a Haymitch story, and I feel
I
like people
can't
can
wait
get
for
behind
people to be sad about it when it
when it isn't.
Mm.
Ha ha ha.
Whatever
Okay.
it is, it's gonna be the best. Even if it's about Haymitch,
Absolutely.
as long as it's what Suzanne wanted to write, I'll take it.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
It'd be fascinating for this one to be focused on Coin in some way, or District 13 when the first prequel was Snow. And they're kind of like, the two sides of the same coin, the
No.
villains.
Mm-hmm.
I would
I
love
could see
that.
it.
Yeah, that could work really well.
But I think I love the parallel more of two capital citizens like Snow and Plutarch and them going in different directions. But
Mm-hmm.
did we talk about Maisley?
No, we haven't.
I mean, I feel like that could be a good or interesting alternative to Haymitch.
hmm
there is so much lore in that family. There is so much
Yes.
The
lore.
Mockingjay pin, yeah.
Yes, like
Yeah.
rereading Catching Fire. I don't know. There's so much lore there. I was extra, like, I'm listening to the audiobook, I'm reading along. Like, there is something between those lines that I don't know. I definitely could see something being involved with Maisley because of the Mockingjay pin. Like, that's just so
Mm-hmm.
symbolic.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh,
No, I
yeah.
definitely think she was part of like the rebel plot and stuff.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about your underground District 12 theory. Rebellion.
Oh geez. Yeah, like this is it's a bit of a reach, but in my fantasy world, there's a whole underground network in District 12 that of rebels. And I think it would make sense for it to be in District 12 just because of how specifically oppressed they are and yet how distant physically they are from the capital.
Like, who would ever suspect District 12, right? That
Correct.
makes sense.
And they're quite close to District 13. And so
Mhm.
it'd be very easy for District 13 to network with the people in District 12. And then, of course, you want it to go to not just the Seam like district, but the Merchant district, because that's where they have at this point a little bit more hope to hold on to, because they're not quite as hopeless as the people who live in the Seam, but they still go hungry at night. They're still in poor conditions, but they have a little bit more strength because they are in a better class than the people in the Seam. So, with that said, I can see how Maisley would be part of, uh, and like with Haymitch, part of the Rebel Underground Network. And then that's how the Mockingjay, like they have this symbol, the Mockingjay, already planned out, and they're just waiting. They're just waiting for this ripe time to begin the rebellion. And so perhaps maybe they thought it was the time with Haymitch, and then they see how it goes south with him and his family. And so they're like, okay, Haymitch, it's not the right time with him. And then they postpone another 25 years later. And then with Katniss, it is the right time. And Madge gives Katniss the pen because they think with her it could be the right
Dun, dun.
like the district could be ready for it. There's more people talking about, wanting to leave. Like Gail is always, yip yapping and griping about it.
Yip yapping.
So like there's a little bit more chatter. And so it's not just that specifically Katniss is the one, but it's that the setting is right for it. It's ready.
It's just so weird that Maisley was the one who originally had the pin.
Yeah.
And like there's got to be some reasoning behind that. And I think it's so cool, like even if there isn't, that is a piece of information, like Plutarch being the game maker that fell into the punch bowl, like pulling from the books and giving us those fun and like more lore, I think is really
Yeah.
cool.
I want more
Mhm.
Mockingjay pin lore. That would be
Mhm.
cool. When was it
Please.
made? And for
Mhm.
what? For who?
And if it's not canon now, I'll make it canon in my head,
Exactly.
you know.
That's what this is. A theories episode, there can be no absurd. I mean, there can be, but there can be no
Yeah.
wrong theories.
We can be
So,
as absurd as we want.
yeah.
Well, that's great because I've got some absurd ideas.
An absurd one that we've heard, I feel like, is a young Effie Trinket point of view.
I
Like,
haven't
what?
heard this one.
There's not much behind it. It's just that somebody suggested that it would be Effie, and I think it's just because it would be a capital character that we would see at a young age. And she
Just like
does have a,
just like one like throwaway line or something
yeah,
about her that we could like assume, okay, maybe that's Effie.
yeah.
That'd be kind of cool.
It's just so weird to think like that she would be the one swayed by the propaganda because we know her story. We know it's different in the book and the movie, but
Or to become an escort in the games. Maybe we'll see some propaganda about that. She'll be like, when I grow up, I know what I want to do.
another one is Tigress's point of view. It would be like a perfect bridge to the gap between Ballad and the original trilogy.
It'd be cool to see some conversations between Tigress and Plutarch, or I mean Tigress and Snow, and
Hmm.
see like where they're at that point, like how she's as a stylist, like what district is she the stylist for?
So you know how a lot of times military technology will become consumer technology, like the internet and
Mhm.
GPS. So what if this is a POV of Tigress and we see Snow convince her to kind of be, or force her to be, the subject of different like science experiments of like for cosmetics. But
Oh,
like that's how the consumer will, like in the market of the capital, they'll see it as cosmetics, but within like the mutations, it's a little bit more sinister. And then we see like the mutations in the 74th games. So I wonder if we see her as like a science experiment, as a literal piece of propaganda for the capital.
I hope not. That sounds so sad.
No,
Like
yeah, no,
like
that's a tragedy.
Tigress's story is so sad, and I think
Mhm.
I could definitely see that being a reality
Mhm.
because we don't know why why she turns out the way that she does and why she looks the way she does. And
Mhm.
so that would
And her
be
hatred for Snow too.
that betrayal that she feels.
Yeah.
Ooh, look at that. That's a theory.
I
It's
feel like her
it's a theory.
like cosmetic alterations are more a reflection of like I don't know.
But it's hard because she
I feel
eats
like
raw
Snow.
meat.
Right. And so like you could obviously it seems like, the most clear answer is that she wanted to do that. And she
Yeah, it's
just
just so
wanted to live
weird.
that life and let her live. But or an absurd theory.
I feel like it's a way of her like coping and like hiding from the world. I think it's more of like a
Mm.
personal, just how I
And
view
escapism,
it. Yeah.
which is what the capital elite or just whoever is in control, that's their type of propaganda to the capital citizen
Mm,
is escapism. And we see this through
right.
like this they are participants in viewing the circus. They receive the propaganda just as much as um, the districts do. So they would be more escapism, while I think other districts would have more mutations and stuff and worse different types of propaganda.
What if we got a mutation point of view?
I would love that.
Oh my God.
The
Vox
candy
point of
pink
view.
birds, an Avox point of view.
Ah!
Honestly, that would be wild because the Avoxes can't talk.
Hmm.
So just
But they can
their internal
communicate. They can
thoughts.
They
use
can,
like sign language.
yeah.
Yeah.
That would be like something interesting to read, is to read like the interaction between people signing.
And Suzanne would do that. She's very inclusive.
Maybe they're part of the underground
But
The literal underground too.
yeah.
in the sewers.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I'm ready to dive into my crazy Plutarch theory and why I like
Okay,
believe that
Oh,
it's
I
Plutarch.
let's
want to
talk
hear
about
that.
Plutarch.
Yeah.
So Plutarch would be like at the time, he would be probably in his mid 20s, right? Like early mid 20s,
That's what I think.
Hmm.
right? So
Hmm.
I think that we would see, like, because Suzanne Collins writes young adult books, this is a young adult perspective, and Plutarch is working under like a middle-aged Snow. And I feel like this connection between Ballad and the original trilogy would be a perfect use of Plutarch as a character, but Dr. Gall would kind of be involved because Snow would be that Dr. Gall character. And so it's like
Hmm.
Plutarch is making this decision, and we know Plutarch is a morally gray character, and he's making this decision, and propaganda is swaying him, but he sees the reality of what is at stake.
Be interesting to see what he actually thinks because I think it's got to start with him realizing that, okay, this isn't going to last forever. The capital isn't going to be in power forever. And
Mm-hmm.
thinking about like where his odds are better, like where his chances lie in siding with the rebels who might overtake one day versus like rising in the ranks of the capital. And I mean, he kind of does both, but I would love to just get more insight on that and like why he makes the decisions that he does.
I would
Yeah.
love to see his relationship with Snow. And
Hmm.
I do believe, like, Plutarch, the Shakespeare character, but also the Greek philosopher and historian. We know him as a historian. And Suzanne likes to take these dead characters and kind of riff off of them. And we see like Coriolanus, he comes up as a military dictator, but Snow, we see him instead come up through like he did go into the military, but truly how he rise through the ranks is through like a civilian dictatorship. Like she'll riff off of these characters, right? And so I do believe that Plutarch in his truest like form, he has to come about like come into some type of historical records or like video footage or old propaganda or literature something of when that kind of makes him like peels off the curtain and like his society is now like this he becomes disillusioned from his society and that's kind of where he changes from just a regular capital citizen to now have a little bit more knowledge and now that the games I see the circuses and it seems quite sinister and
Hmm.
disgusting but now I'm in the situation where what are the odds of the capital sustaining this because him being a morally gray character, I can't see him being riled up kind of like Sejanus would be.
Hmm.
So I could see what you mean, Emily, about he is kind of concerned about his own
Yeah, he's too
self-interest.
smart for that.
Mhm.
He does what Sejanus wishes he could have done.
Correct, yeah. So he's like trying to play the long game of chess here. I would love to see that, and that's would be my prediction of how Plutarch kind of becomes disillusioned from his upbringing within the capital as a capital citizen, and how he would have to mask that if he were to have a relationship with Snow at a young age. But I do think that turning point would be him being a historian and coming about some
Hmm.
type of historical records.
I'm all about that.
I think like asking the question, like you talked about their relationship, but like, why is it that President Snow trusts Plutarch so much? Because in Catching
Mhm.
Fire, he trusts him so deeply, and it can be assumed that they changed the games and that from the deleted scene, Plutarch went in and changed the game. Like they work side by side, and Plutarch plays President Snow like the entire time during the 75th games, and even before that, he's behind his back and he's running this. So it's like I just would love to see how he gets so close with Snow to the
Maybe
point like how
Mhm.
he
Snow
uses him.
gives him a test of some kind around these games. I don't know, while he's an intern game maker or whatever, and he does something. He makes like a bad choice, like something that we would see as bad, but it's, to play the long game to get his
Hmm.
trust.
Mhm.
And then he has
Ooh.
that moving forward. Because you've talked about Holly, like what is the twist gonna be? Like what's the shocking thing going to be? And like that's a really good question. I don't know.
I mean, there's so many character options to write about, and all of them could have their own individual stories and twists. It all ends in a Hunger Games every single time. It ends in some sort of games. So I don't know if it'll be the quarter quell or if it'll be a smaller games like we saw with Lucy Gray and Corio. I mean, another thing is an indicator that this could be about Plutarch is that Plutarch becomes the Secretary of Communications in a post Snow world. And so I feel like that's just another indicator, like a small little sprinkle of information that she could pull from to be like, this man literally knows communications inside and out. He knows how propaganda works. How is it that he knows it as a capital citizen who goes behind the backs of capital citizens to help the rebels? But I also think that something interesting that could be a completely different story from a Plutarch story would be a Rogue One type story. Like I could see her writing a book
One
that
off.
is like a standalone,
Mhm.
and it could end in death, and it could be like the rebels coming up in District 12 or a certain district during the time where things were escalating in the districts politically. And so I think that we could see maybe a career perspective or like that role of propaganda being played, and I could see her just making it a standalone. I don't know, I want a connection, but I could also see her
Yeah.
doing that standalone.
But I could see how it could still connect, like if there was some type of greater uprising happening within District 12, and let's say Plutarch is sent to dispel that through various means that the capitals came up with at this time. And from there, he's kind of like we see the rebel plot be shut down, but then also we see that connection of how does Plutarch still become involved with the rebels later on in Katniss's games, and maybe that could be how he becomes influenced.
He discovers the lost tape of the 10th games. Dun dun dun.
I wonder if he's gonna have to like destroy evidence or like old whatever he finds, you know?
Mhm.
They're gonna like burn it all or something.
Yeah, did it ever happen? Was this real or not real? Because you can destroy the evidence, but then there are like memories of people who lived through it. I know you can manipulate, you can gaslight people into saying like, oh, that actually never happened, or those games never happened, or it didn't
But
go
you
that
gotta
way.
execute all those people.
I'm interested into seeing what hijacking looks like during
Mm.
this time. Only because she mentions like real or not real. And so
Mm.
David, and she mentions real or not real, and David Hume. And David Hume, he really kind of takes philosophy to a dead end. And that he basically says the only way to know what is truth is what we experience. But yet, we will never know if what we experience is real or not real, essentially. Like we can never truly, he uses this as an example, an apple. We can never truly experience an apple. We can only taste the imitation, like its imitations is its taste, its color, the impressions of its color, the impressions of how it feels. But truly at its
Mm.
essence, we'll never actually know if this is an apple.
We can't be the apple.
We
So
can't be the, yeah, we can experience it. Yeah. And so he kind of makes you question yourself like, is this reality even real? Is this what I'm experiencing? Because before that, philosophers like John Locke, he kind of started this philosophy of like what we experience is truth. And so that kind of continued until David Hume comes along and he says, yes, and also, is that even truth in itself? Like, how will we never ever know anything is true ever? So, to tie that in, I'm interested to see if she will expand on the finding of hijacking, like the first person who is hijacked, because
mm,
that truly is a good like depiction of something being like your experience and reality not being true, psychologically twisting your memories. That's something I hope, and I am like predicting that we'll see a little bit more insight into hijacking or just any other type of science, like some type of experiments for the sake of propaganda.
maybe that's what Snow asks Plutarch to do or be involved in some
Mhm.
Oh
way.
my gosh.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why he trusts him.
Mhm.
I love that. I hate that, but I love that.
I wonder if there will be quotes at the beginning of the book, like there
Oh,
was for
Yeah,
Ballad. I hope
I
I
was
so,
so
hoping
hope
so.
so. Mhm.
just to set the
Yeah.
tone.
Yeah, and whenever I read, oh man, if that happens, when I read those quotes, I'm gonna like set aside the book for a second
Just think
and
about it,
just
make
think
some
about it.
predictions.
Yeah, write it all down. Yeah.
Well, I also have some social media questions. I asked what people are predicting from Sunrise on the Reaping, and some fun ones. Let's see. Taylor said we will find out Lucy Gray's fate. And I wanted to talk about that. Do you guys think we'll see or hear about what happens to Lucy Gray?
I think she could tell us, actually. I just keep thinking about that interview where she was asked about the fate of Lucy Gray, and she said she was leaving it open in case she decided to
Hmm.
do something down the line.
Hmm.
So I feel like there's a possibility that she wouldn't always keep it ambiguous. I like that it's ambiguous. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to know.
I already know because my theory is that Lucy Gray is Greasy Say, and what if Sunrise on the Reaping is from Greasy Say's point of view? Like, we haven't talked about that
You
yet.
know, why do I believe you? Like, I'm
I
fully convinced that she
I'm fully
could be
convinced.
yeah,
Greasy Say.
I am too.
Over time, I've
She's at
convinced
the
myself.
Hob, like that's
Hmm.
her spot. Like it always has been. She takes care of
Hmm.
Katniss. I just she knows how to hook these animals that are brought in by Katniss from the outskirts of District 12. She was out there
Mhm.
for herself like a little bit of the time. So
And
Well,
she could
we'll see.
lead the rebel cause.
She could. That would be such like a no one would see it coming. No one saw it coming. Okay, this makes me excited. This is kind of like off topic a little, but Mockingjay Files said soundtrack predictions. Lord, Taylor Swift, Chapel Roan. I think that would be awesome. Get Chapel Roan on this album.
I wish we got like more songs for the ballad soundtrack, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what is the vibe of this book and the resulting movie.
Mhm.
And because the Covey were so heavily involved
Mm.
in
Hmm.
ballad, but I don't think this vibe's gonna be the same for this book.
I wonder if she'll use music as much as she did in Ballad in this story. Because I mean,
Hmm.
music is important in the trilogy. To be important, it could be that storytelling idea behind propaganda, because like singing
Hmm.
and songwriting is a form of rebellion or can be.
That's a good point.
And art in general, yeah.
Another prediction, which we didn't talk about this, is Haymitch's girlfriend will be awesome. True. But Haymitch's girlfriend will be the main point of view. That's from M. Radwell.
I
I
forget
think
that
that'd be
Haymitch
interesting.
had a girlfriend. Girlfriend and family.
Yes. That is
We're probably
unfortunately
gonna
killed
see
off.
their deaths, or like at least hear about their deaths in the book.
Maybe that's what Plutarch is involved in. Dun dun dun. To
Yeah,
prove that
maybe.
Lauren said we will meet or learn more about the victor of the first quarter quell, which I think would be super
I hope
interesting.
so. Hope we learn more about the
Ooh.
first quarter quell.
Hmm.
Oh, I love this. It's from Sam. Something major will happen in the hours leading up to the reaping. Maybe it starts way before all the drama happens right before the reaping. I think that would be kind of cool
Yeah,
and
what
create
happens
That
to
would be really
chaos.
cool.
sunrise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a literal sunrise? Metaphorical? Yeah.
That's the question. What the heck does
Hmm.
It's both.
sunrise on the reaping mean?
Yeah.
The name has grown on me. I'll be honest. Like when I first heard it, I was like, eh.
I kind of,
But
it's better now. I still don't like it, but I also still don't really like Ballad's title. I feel like it's too
Yeah,
long.
I think so too. But I prefer sunrise than ballad.
well, those are our theories, I guess.
Mhm.
Any other final theories or thoughts that you want to throw in before we sign off?
Do we think the book's gonna be purple? I mean, I feel like
Yeah.
it is. It makes sense. I know I said gold before just for the aesthetic, but I think a lilac book would look so good
Hmm.
right here
I
with
would.
my books.
I do have another theory that we'll see or learn more about Snow's transition into power.
Hmm.
If
Yeah.
if not like not because I don't know if I'm assuming that Snow's already president during Haymitch's games. I think
I
so.
feel like
Yes.
he's president.
I think we will learn, if it's a Plutarch POV, of course, I think we will learn how he became president and if there was a different type of government while President Ravenstill was in power compared to when Snow takes power. I would be interested to see if there was some type of council who kind of elects from a pool of people, perhaps, or within the council itself with and like that's kind of how the government is structured while Ravenstill's in power. And then as Snow climbs the ranks and he kills off people through poison or he maintains power through poisoning um and just executing people, he will change the government into a more formal dictatorship to where then he gets to decide whether it's through his own like lineage and like it becomes like, almost like a monarchy, or he decides who is next in power. I'm interested to see more of
Mm,
specifically the government like structures, if there's any political parties, which I don't think there would be, but if there's anything other than a dictatorship before Snow takes power. Because we see Dr. Gall kind of have more of a presence of power and ballot than Raven still ever did.
mhm.
Mhm.
So I'm curious if he became a game maker, and then that's kind of how he killed off the president, and then he assumes the title of the presidency, and that's how he.
I feel like he was head game maker for a while, and then as the
Mhm.
games become more part of society and like essential, then the head game maker is going to be the face of everything in the capital, right? And I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
that just transitioned easily to becoming president, but I agree, I'd love to see more. There's so much room for lore. It's just
So much
expansion.
lore.
It's so exciting.
Yeah.
That's what I want, is just more lore. And then we can just fantasize about another book, and it'll be great. Well, I guess that about sums it up. We've talked about pretty much every theory I feel like that we've heard so far. Let us know if there's a theory that we missed, or what your theory that you agree with or any that you disagree with. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And thank you, Gabby, so much for joining us tonight. It was
Of
been so
course.
much
Thank you
fun
for having me
recording with
on.
you. Yay! Join us for Tribute Talk. Gabby is one of our panelists, so join us for that when we go live. And we will see you next month for another episode.
See ya.